Part 1. The Discovery. If someone told me that my husband had been hiding an entire house from me, I would have laughed in their face. But the truth I stumbled upon one evening nearly shattered my world. I didn't grow up thinking I would ever be the type of woman who doubted her husband. Trust had always been the backbone of our marriage. At least, that's what I thought. Daniel and I had been married for 8 years, and in all that time, I had never once questioned his loyalty, his honesty, his devotion. We had our fights, sure, what couple doesn't? But betrayal? Lies? Those belonged in movies, in the whispered gossip of other people's lives, not mine. Or so I thought. The night everything changed started so mundanely that I almost hate remembering it. It was a Thursday, nothing special. Work had drained me, like always, and I came home to the quiet comfort of our modest house, already planning what leftovers I'd heat up for dinner. Daniel had left early that morning before I even woke up, muttering something about an early meeting with a client. He worked in real estate, so irregular hours weren't exactly unusual. But when I dropped my bag on the kitchen table, I noticed a stack of mail scattered across the counter. Nothing out of the ordinary. Bills, coupons, the usual junk, except for one envelope. It was half hidden under yesterday's newspaper, plain white, with a bank's insignia stamped in the corner. What caught my eye wasn't the stamp, but the way it was addressed. No name, just an address. An address I didn't recognize. Something about it felt wrong. I should have ignored it. I should have set it aside and gone on with my night. But curiosity has always been my weakness, and that night it got the better of me. I slid a finger under the seal and tore it open. What I found inside stopped my heart. Mortgage papers. I skimmed the lines at first, not fully processing. Legal jargon, numbers, interest rates. But then my gaze landed on the borrower's name, typed neatly in black ink. Daniel R. Walker. My husband. I froze. And then below that, an address. Not our address, some other house. My first thought was that it had to be a mistake. Maybe the bank had sent the wrong documents. But as my eyes scanned further down, I saw his signature. His unmistakable signature, written with the same swooping D I'd watched him scribble 1,000 times. No mistake, no accident. Daniel had signed these papers. My husband had bought a house, and I had known nothing about it. The sound of the refrigerator humming filled the silence as I stood in the kitchen staring at the papers in disbelief. My legs felt weak, like they couldn't quite remember how to hold me up. I sank into a chair, gripping the document so tightly my knuckles turned white. We shared everything, or at least that's what I thought. Finances, plans, even stupid little purchases were always discussed. I couldn't buy a new blender without him making a joke about budgeting. And yet here he was, buying an entire house in secret. Why? I read the papers again, slower this time, my eyes catching on every date, every figure. The mortgage had been signed 3 months ago. That was the same month Daniel started coming home later than usual, brushing it off with tough market excuses. My stomach twisted. The pieces didn't fit together, but they were starting to form a picture I didn't want to see. By the time I heard the front door open, I had stuffed the papers back into the envelope and shoved it under the mail pile, my heart slamming against my ribs like a guilty drum. "Hey, honey," Daniel called cheerfully, carrying a takeout bag. "Brought dessert." He looked so normal. Smiling, relaxed, tie loosened, the faint scent of cologne lingering on him. I studied him like a stranger, searching his face for cracks, for shadows of guilt. But all I saw was my husband, my charming, familiar, ordinary husband. How was it possible that this man I thought I knew better than anyone, was hiding something so enormous from me? I wanted to confront him right then, slam the papers onto the table, and demand an explanation. But something inside me whispered, not yet. Not until I understood what I was up against. So I smiled. I laughed when he made a dumb joke about his boss. I ate the slice of pie he brought me, though it tasted like ash in my mouth. All the while, the secret pressed against my chest, heavy and suffocating. When he finally fell asleep, I slipped out of bed and tiptoed into the living room. My hand shook as I pulled the envelope from the stack of mail. I spread the papers across the coffee table, the unfamiliar address glaring at me from the page. I grabbed my phone and typed it into Google Maps. It was only 20 minutes away. My pulse quickened. My husband had bought a house 20 minutes from where we lived. Why? I zoomed in on the satellite view. A quiet street. Suburban. Not far from a park. Nothing remarkable. Nothing dangerous. And yet, staring at that little digital pin on my screen, I felt as though I were staring into a black hole. I didn't sleep that night. The following days were torture. I carried the secret like a stone in my pocket, heavy and unyielding. Every smile Daniel gave me, every casual brush of his hand against mine, felt like a lie. And I started noticing things. Little things I had ignored before. The way he sometimes took phone calls in the garage, speaking in a hushed voice. The way he occasionally smelled faintly of a perfume that wasn't mine. The odd charges on his credit card statements that didn't quite match the explanations he gave. Had it all been there before and I'd just been blind? Paranoia clawed at me. I became hyper-aware of his movements, his words, his routines. Each time he said, "I'll be home late, don't wait up," my stomach churned. Where was he really going? To that house? Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. On Saturday morning, Daniel claimed he had errands to run. He kissed me goodbye, casual and unassuming, as though nothing was wrong. As soon as his car disappeared down the street, I grabbed my keys. I had to see the house. The drive felt endless and yet far too quick. My thoughts raced faster than the car, spiraling into every possibility. Maybe he was cheating. Maybe he had another family. Maybe he was in trouble, hiding something darker than an affair. When the GPS finally announced, "You've arrived at your destination," my breath caught in my throat. There it was. A 2-story house, modest but charming, nestled on a quiet street. The paint was a little faded, the lawn slightly overgrown, but it wasn't abandoned. It had the kind of presence that felt lived in. I parked a few houses away, my heart pounding so loudly I thought it might shake the car. I sat frozen, gripping the steering wheel, staring at the house that represented every unanswered question. The curtains were drawn, the driveway was empty, nothing moved. Just when I was convincing myself that maybe the house was vacant, maybe Daniel had bought it as an investment property. Just when I was convincing myself that maybe the house was vacant, maybe Daniel had bought it as an investment property.
Part 2. The house. The moment I saw that light flicker on in the upstairs window, I knew I couldn't just sit in the car anymore. Whatever was going on in that house, whatever secret my husband was hiding from me, it was inside those walls. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly they ached. My throat was dry, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. The upstairs light glowed faintly through the curtains, proof that someone, something, was inside. But who? I sat there for what felt like forever, torn between the urge to run and the need to know. My rational side screamed at me to drive away, to go home, to pretend I had never found those mortgage papers. But another voice, sharper and stronger, whispered, "You can't unknow this. You can't go back." Finally, with trembling fingers, I shut off the engine. The silence was deafening. I got out of the car, the night air cold against my skin, and started walking slowly down the sidewalk. Each step echoed in my ears, loud, dangerous, like footsteps in a crime scene. I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting Daniel's car to appear at any moment. When I reached the house, I hesitated at the edge of the driveway. Up close, the property looked different, more alive. The lawn wasn't just neglected, it had been cut recently, but not with care, like someone had rushed through the chore. A bicycle leaned against the porch railing, small, pink, with a glittery tassel hanging from one handlebar. My stomach turned. A child. There was a child connected to this house. I forced myself to breathe, to focus. Maybe it wasn't Daniel's. Maybe the house had tenants. Maybe he rented it out. That would explain everything. Except, why hide it from me? I crept up the walkway, every sense on high alert. The front door was shut, the blinds drawn tight. But as I reached the porch, I noticed something. On the doormat lay a single black key. It wasn't hidden, it wasn't tucked away, it was just there. My pulse thundered in my ears. I crouched, picking it up. It was heavy in my palm, cold, real. The thought came unbidden, reckless. What if it's the key to the house? I looked up at the glowing window. Shadows moved faintly behind the curtains, shapes I couldn't make out. A woman? A child? The key felt like it was burning into my hand. I should have left, I know that, but I slid it in my pocket anyway. I didn't use it that night. My fear outweighed my desperation. Instead, I hurried back to my car and drove home, every nerve buzzing, every streetlight casting accusatory shadows. Daniel came back later, around midnight. He kissed me softly, like nothing was wrong, like he hadn't been hiding an entire other life 20 minutes away. I forced a smile and asked how his errands went. He said easily. Boring stuff. And just like that, I hated him. Over the next week, I couldn't stop thinking about the key. It sat hidden in my purse, heavy and accusing. Every time Daniel left for work, every time he said, "Don't wait up," the temptation grew stronger. On Wednesday, I gave in. He had an evening meeting, or so he claimed. As soon as he left, I grabbed my purse, my phone, and the key. My hands shook on the steering wheel during the drive, my mind screaming at me to turn back. But I couldn't. When I arrived, the house looked darker than before. No lights glowed in the windows, no bicycle on the porch this time, just silence. I parked in the same spot as before, sat there for a full minute, then forced myself out of the car. The key felt like lead in my pocket as I walked up the path. My breath came in sharp, shallow bursts. At the door, I hesitated only a moment before sliding the key into the lock. It turned smoothly, effortless. The door creaked open. The smell hit me first. Not musty, not abandoned, lived in. The faint scent of lavender air freshener mixed with something sweeter, cookies maybe. My stomach twisted. I stepped inside. The living room was tidy but not staged. A couch with a throw blanket, a coffee table stacked of magazines, a pair of sneakers tossed carelessly by the door, too small to belong to Daniel. I moved further in, my heart racing with each step. In the kitchen, a half-full glass of milk sat on the counter beside an open box of cereal. A child's drawing hung on the fridge, crayon scribbles of a stick figure family. 3 people, a man, a woman, and a little girl with a bow in her hair. The man looked like Daniel. My breath caught. My vision blurred. I stumbled backwards, clutching the counter to balance. It couldn't be. It couldn't. But the more I looked, the more the truth pressed in on me. This wasn't some rental property. This wasn't a side investment. This was a home. A real home. And my husband was part of it. I wandered further through the house, numb, my hands trembling. Upstairs, I found 2 bedrooms. The first was clearly an adult's, soft sheets, makeup bottles on the dresser, perfume lingering faintly in the air. Not mine, not ours. The second room broke me. It was a child's room. Pink walls, stuffed animals lined it neatly on a shelf, a small bed covered with a cartoon blanket. A doll lay abandoned on the pillow, staring up at me with glassy eyes. I stood frozen in the doorway, the sound of my own breathing ragged in my ears. My vision swam, my chest hurt. How long had he been doing this? Who was she? Whose child was that? Was it his? My knees nearly gave out as I stumbled backwards, one hand pressed to my mouth to keep from sobbing. I couldn't be here. I shouldn't be here. but I couldn't move. I couldn't think. And then I heard it. The unmistakable sound of a car pulling into the driveway.
Part 3. The Confrontation. I thought I was ready for the truth. I thought nothing could shock me more than what I had already seen in that house. But the moment the front door opened and I heard their voices, I realized I had no idea how deep the lies went. The sound of the car in the driveway froze me where I stood. My chest tightened, my throat constricted, and for a split second, I truly thought my heart had stopped. Daniel. It had to be him. I bolted from the child's room, stumbling down the hallway, my mind racing. I couldn't be caught here, not like this, not with proof of my trespassing all around me. My eyes darted wildly, searching for somewhere to hide. The upstairs closet, too small. Under the bed, too risky. The bathroom, no. The footsteps outside grew closer, gravel crunching beneath shoes. I heard muffled voices, 2 of them, one deep, one light, female. My breath caught in my throat. Not just Daniel, her. I rushed into the master bedroom and crouched low behind the dresser, my entire body trembling. My pulse hammered in my ears so loudly I could barely hear the front door creak open. Laughter spilled into the house, a woman's laughter, light, familiar. Then came another sound, high-pitched, innocent, a child's giggle. My vision blurred. My hands shook so violently that I had to press them over my mouth to keep from making a sound. This wasn't just a house. This wasn't just a fling. This was a family. "Go wash up before bed, sweetheart," the woman's voice called. Tiny footsteps pattered up the stairs. My breath lodged in my throat as I heard them approach. Closer, louder. They stopped right outside the hallway. If that little girl had turned her head, if she had looked into the master bedroom, she would have seen me crouching there, pale and shaking like an intruder. But the steps continued past. A door creaked, a child's voice sang softly to herself. I slumped against the dresser, dizzy with terror and heartbreak. Below, I heard Daniel. His voice, calm, familiar. How was she today? She was fine, a little fussy after school, but she cheered up when she saw you. My stomach dropped. School. She was old enough for school. This wasn't new. This wasn't recent. This had been going on for years. I don't know how long I stayed frozen there, listening to their muffled conversation drifting up from the living room. It was surreal, like eavesdropping on some alternate reality where my husband wasn't mine, where he belonged to someone entirely. When I finally dared to move, I crept silently down the hall and back into the child's room. The door was ajar, just enough for me to peek inside. And there she was, a little girl, no older than 5 or 6, sitting cross-legged on her bed. Her hair was the same shade of chestnut as Daniel's, her eyes big and bright as she hummed to herself, clutching a stuffed rabbit. My knees nearly buckled. The resemblance was undeniable. She was his daughter. My husband had a daughter I had never known about. I stumbled backward, barely containing the sob threatening to rip out of me. I pressed both hands over my mouth, desperate to keep quiet. My mind screamed, my heart shattered. My entire body felt like it was being torn apart from the inside. I couldn't stay. I couldn't breathe. I fled down the stairs, moving as quietly as I could, praying the floorboards wouldn't betray me. But as I reached the bottom, I froze. Daniel stood in the kitchen doorway, and he was looking right at me. The world tilted. For a moment, I thought I might faint. His face shifted from casual calm to stunned disbelief in an instant. "Emily," he voiced low, dangerous. "What the hell are you doing here?" My lips trembled. Words caught in my throat. What is this place? Who is she?" The woman appeared behind him, her expression flashing from confusion to panic. She clutched her robe tighter around her body, eyes darting between us. Daniel's jaw clenched. "Emily, you need to leave. Now." "No." My voice cracked, but I stood my ground. "I'm not going anywhere until you tell me the truth. Is he yours? Is that little girl yours, Daniel?" Silence. The kind of silence that screamed louder than any answer. Finally, he stepped closer, lowering his voice. "It's not what you think." I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "Not what I think. You bought a house behind my back. You've been sneaking away for months. There's a woman here. There's a child here. And you want me to believe it's not what I think?" The woman spoke then, her voice shaking. "Daniel, stay out of this, Claire," he snapped. Claire. Her name was Claire. I burned the sound of it into my mind like a brand. I turned back to him, tears streaming down my face. "How long? How long have you been lying to me?" Daniel's shoulders slumped. His eyes darkened, and for the first time, I saw it. The guilt. "Years," he whispered. The word shattered me. But before I could collapse, before I could even scream, he stepped closer, his eyes pleading. "Emily, listen to me. It's not simple. You don't understand." "Then make me understand," I hissed. "Tell me why my entire life has been a lie." The little girl's voice floated down from upstairs. "Daddy? Who's here?" My entire body went cold. Daddy. The truth was undeniable now. And yet even then, Daniel shook his head, as though he could spin another web of lies to catch me in. "It's complicated," he said again, his voice breaking. "But I swear to you, it's not what it looks like." For the first time in our marriage, I saw a stranger standing in front of me. And the terrifying part, I wasn't sure if I wanted the truth anymore. Because whatever it was, I knew it would destroy me.
Part 4. The truth. I thought the worst thing I could ever discover was that my husband had another family. But that wasn't the truth. The truth was something darker, something I never could have imagined. And once I heard it, there was no going back. Daniel stood in front of me, his face pale, his eyes desperate. The little girl's voice echoed from upstairs again, calling for her father. And in that moment, I felt like my entire world was collapsing in on itself. "Daddy?" She called again. Claire turned toward the stairs, panic in her face. "I'll take care of her," she whispered before rushing up to the child's room. That left just the two of us, me and Daniel. The man I thought I knew, the man I had trusted with everything. "You lied to me," I whispered. My voice shook, but the words were sharp, cutting through the silence. "For years." Daniel closed his eyes like my words physically hurt him. When he opened them again, I saw something I had never seen before. Not just guilt, not just fear, something darker. "I didn't know how to tell you," he said quietly. "How to tell me what? That you've been living a double life? That you've been coming home to me and running off to them? That you have a daughter you never told me about?" He flinched, but he didn't deny it. "Her name is Lily," he said instead, voice breaking. The sound of it ripped through me. A name, a real name. Not just a secret child anymore, but a person. A little girl with a pink bicycle and crayon drawings on the fridge. My knees went weak. "Is she yours?" The silence was deafening. His jaw clenched. His eyes flickered with something unreadable. "Yes." The word fell between us like a bomb. I staggered back, shaking my head. You had a child with her while you were married to me?" His voice rose suddenly, raw and desperate. "It's not that simple."
Not that simple, I snapped, my voice cracking. You've been lying to me for years, Daniel. Our entire marriage, what was it? A cover? Was I just the woman you used to keep your perfect little image while you played house with her? Tears blurred my vision, but I forced myself to look at him, to see him for what he was. And then, finally, he said the words that broke everything. I knew about Lily before I ever met you. I froze. What? He swallowed hard, his voice low. She was born before we got married. I didn't know how to tell you. I thought I could keep both worlds separate, that I could be the man you needed and still be there for her. The floor seemed to vanish beneath me. My stomach twisted violently, bile rising in my throat. You married me, knowing you already had a child? You let me believe? You let me believe I was your everything? And the whole time you had a daughter hidden away? His eyes glistened. I thought if I told you you'd leave me, I couldn't risk that. I couldn't lose you. I laughed then, a bitter, hollow sound that didn't feel like it belonged to me. You didn't lose me, Daniel. You never even had me, because the man I married doesn't exist. He's a lie. Duh. Claire reappeared then, standing at the bottom of the stairs, her arms crossed protectively. I had hated her before, without even knowing her. But now, looking at her, I realized she wasn't just the other woman. She had been part of this lie too. She had raised Lily in this house, all while Daniel built a separate life with me. How could you do this? I asked her, my voice shaking with rage. How could you let me live a lie for so long? Her eyes softened, and for a moment, I saw something unexpected. Pity. You think you're the only one who was lied to, she said quietly. I blinked. What? She glanced at Daniel, her voice sharp now. Tell her, Daniel. Tell her the truth, all of it, or I will. He stiffened. His face went pale. What truth? I demanded. Claire's voice shook as she spoke. Lily isn't just his daughter. She's why he bought this house, why he hid everything. Because if people knew about her, if the wrong people found out, Claire, Daniel barked, his voice harsh, but it was too late. The words spilled out. She's not supposed to exist. The room spun. What are you talking about? Claire looked at me with haunted eyes. Daniel wasn't just hiding us from you. He was hiding us from everyone. His work, his family, his entire past. Because Lily was born from something he wasn't supposed to survive. Daniel's face twisted, fury and fear battling in his eyes. Enough. But Claire kept going. He wasn't just cheating, Emily. He was lying to both of us. You see him as your husband. I saw him as Lily's father, but neither of us really knew him. Because the truth is... She swallowed hard, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel has been running from something his whole life. And Lily? Lily is proof of the one thing he can never escape. The silence that followed was unbearable. My hands shook, my chest ached, my mind reeled. I stared at Daniel, desperate for answers. What does she mean? Running from what? His eyes met mine, and for the first time I saw it, it was terror. Not guilt, not just fear. Pure, unfiltered terror. And in that moment, I realized far worse than betrayal. My husband hadn't just been hiding a family, he had been hiding who he really was. That was the night everything ended. Because once the truth finally came out, once I learned what Daniel had really done all those years ago, there was no saving us. There was no saving me.